For now, other news, they have been called forever chemicals, and they have been linked to serious illnesses, including cancer.
Tonight, an exclusive 5 on Your Side investigation digs into how some of it is now reaching into the drinking water.
Chief Investigator Ron Regan has the answers you need to know.
Ohio is now testing water supplies across the state to find out whether something called PFAS and PFOA, that's a family of thousands of related chemicals, are in your drinking water and making you sick.
Certain types of cancer, thyroid disease, hypertension.
It's the chemical behind the non-stick frying pan, plus food packaging and scores of other products. Chris Tavener represents the Ohio Environmental Council.
People most are going to think of PFAS, understand what it is through the use of Teflon.
Don't get stuck.
Unless you want to develop a strong attachment to dinner, choose a DuPont nonstick.
It's been around since the 50s, but decades later, Ohio attorney Rob Belot got a tip from a farmer.
Cows that were dying on his property. And he was convinced there was something coming out of a landfill owned by the DuPont company nearby that was making his cows sick. He could see white foaming water coming out of the discharge pipe.
Belon has successfully prosecuted DuPont for 20 years on behalf of plaintiffs alleging kidney and testicular cancer. Plus, Ohio is now suing, alleging DuPont's plant across the river from Marietta and Belpre has caused widespread contamination. But despite 20 years of lawsuits, Ohio and the nation have no required standards for safe levels.
There are no mandatory requirements on either the polluters or drinking water utilities for PFAS.
Instead, the U.S. EPA has only a recommended guideline, considered far too high for safety. Dr. David Andrews is a researcher with the Environmental Working Group.
The federal government is really dragging its feet, and they're not leading the way in terms of environmental protections.
The group found related chemicals have now been found in drinking water in dozens of U.S. cities, and Cleveland industrial sites have been linked to their use, increasing the chance they can seep into groundwater and rivers. In Dayton, it's suspected firefighting foam containing the chemical that leaked into its water supply. And in Ravenna, it's turned up in a former arsenal. Plus, lab tests we obtained show even small traces have been found in water in Cleveland and Cleveland Heights.
Across the board, the values were very low and expected to be below 1 part per trillion range, which is actually good to see.
That's a grain of sand in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Some states have adopted much tougher standards to protect drinking water. Meanwhile, federal legislation is underway to tighten restrictions.
The goal is that, when we hear about these potential contaminants that are getting into the water, that we need to get in front of the issue and make sure that we're protecting it so that it doesn't become an unsafe issue.
And just last month, under pressure, the U.S. EPA finally announced plans to set a national standard for those chemicals. But that could take years. I'm Chief Investigator Ron Regan.